my name is Dr. Dan Fleishman, and I'm from Plano, Texas. And I'd like to discuss the importance of adjusting children. I think a lot of times they are some of our most neglected portion of our population, and oftentimes they need it the most to really have a chance to thrive and live. A couple of examples I'll give. One of them start off with one that's obviously very personal to me. It involves my daughter. My daughter was born with an APGAR score of 1. And I don't know if many people know what an APGAR score is, but in the hospital when you're born, they give you a score ranging from 0 to 10. 10 being best, you're pink, you're robust, you're healthy, you're terrific, and 0 being dead. She was born with a 1, unfortunately. She was blue, she was not breathing. They rushed in about 4 or 5 doctors to resuscitate her. They brought her down to neonatal intensive care, and about 5 hours later they brought her back up to us. Well, during that time, we weren't sure if we had lost her or not. So it was a very, very scary time, as it is for any parent, I think, that would go through such an experience like that. Well, when they brought her up, first thing my wife tried to do was nurse. And my daughter, Haley, she wouldn't turn her head into her. Now, normal first reaction for a baby putting up to a woman's breasts, they turn their head and they start to nurse. So I knew, based on how she was born, that something was wrong. So I checked her. Sure enough, first bone was out in the neck. And I said to my wife, I'm going to adjust her. And she says, you're going to do what? I said, I'm going to adjust her. Now, me being a chiropractor, that's what I do. I know that there's a subluxation in the neck causing nerve interference. I knew that that was causing the problem, and I knew I needed to correct it in order to give her the best chance, not only for survival, but also to correct what was going on. So I showed my wife, I pulled out an adjusting instrument called an activator, and I held it against my finger, and I held it against her hand. I used my finger as the cushion. I said, this is what I'm going to do. I demonstrated on her. She said, okay, got my approval, go ahead and adjust her. So I laid her down, my daughter Haley, and I adjusted the first bone in the neck, handed her back to my wife, and she immediately turned her head and started nursing. And she's been getting chiropractic care ever since. And she's healthier than just about any other child in her class. I mean, she's smart as a whip, she's beautiful, she's 11 years old now, and it's just the apple of my eye. Another child story that I'd like to share with you is I had we're going to call her Baby Gracie. And she had what's called failure to thrive syndrome. Now, for those of you that don't know what failure to thrive syndrome is, baby's just not developing properly. She was almost a year old and looked like she was about 6 months, just not growing. She came to me as kind of an emergency case, last resort type of situation. For about 3 days she had a fever. She wasn't eating, she wasn't urinating, she wasn't using the restroom in any way. And the mother naturally was very worried and very scared. Well, the mother had taken the baby to the pediatrician, and they put her on antibiotics. Actually, she'd been on antibiotics repeatedly all her life. And by the time she'd come to me, she had exhausted the medical route. They didn't know what to do. They were just going to put a catheter up her and see if that would do anything. So I get an emergency call on the weekend, and I say, go ahead and bring Gracie in. And I check her, and we use, in the chiropractic profession, we use equipment called surface EMG and thermography, and that helps check the status of the nervous system and what's actually going on. And in using the instrumentation, I found that, again, with this baby as well, the first bone in the neck was out. Now, at this time, Gracie was so underdeveloped. Not only did she have the problems that I mentioned just a little while ago, she wasn't sitting up on her own. She was just not developing well at all. I mean, just like a little infant, a little baby, but she was about a year old. So I check her. She had subluxations in the neck. I adjusted her and handed her back to her mother. Now, prior to me adjusting her, her mom wanted me to show me that she wasn't going to take the bottle. She just just wouldn't eat or drink. And sure enough, the mother took the bottle to Gracie's lips and just tried to drink, and prior to the adjustment, she just spit it back out. She wouldn't drink. After the adjustment, it was a different story. She drank nearly half a bottle. I got tears. The mother got tears. My wife, who was helping me as chiropractic assistant at the time, she got tears. And I said I wanted to see Gracie later that afternoon. I wanted to check her again. During that time, she'd gone out to the car. She had peed for the first time, went home, drank another full bottle, slept for the first time in several days. The fever broke, and she sat up for the first time. I think that's pretty cool. She brings her back, still hadn't pooped yet. So second adjustment, adjusted her, and said, okay, I want to see Gracie, Monday morning. This was Sunday. And the mother comes running back into the office. Gracie just pooped. So it was a whole new start for her. After that, she started to grow normally. She started to be like the other kids. She started to catch up like, her other peers. And she started to develop normally. That, to me, not only changes the life of a child, but it saves a life. And I've had children come in with crossed eyes and help been able to correct crossed eyes when surgery was not only discussed, but also utilized and didn't help. Oftentimes, parents would bring their kids in, for their quote-unquote attitude adjustment, because once they get adjusted, their temperament evens out, and they do better, and they're able to interact with other people on a whole better scale, on a much calmer scale, and be fun to be around. So not only does it change the child's life, but it also impacts and changes the dynamics of the family and how everybody relates to one another. Anyway, those are just a few of the stories. There's lots more, and I know you'll be hearing from a lot more doctors that'll share other miracles as well. And that's part of what chiropractic is. That's a huge part, is removing that interference and allowing your inborn innate potential to shine, to be the best you can possibly be. That's what we're really all about, right? We all want to be the best we can be without the interference.